This is our online interactive book club for our Alpha community members. It's intimate again. It is just for you guys. If you did join us from our little YouTube stint that we had all of last month, thank you. Welcome. Hi. My name's Maude Garrett. Joining me as always, we've got this guy, Hector Navarro. So hi.
What's up, internet? Hi.
I reckon that would be like your dating profile. Like if you had to write anything, it would be like a...
No, my dating profiles, when I did do online dating, were super clever, and it didn't matter. Didn't even matter. Nope. That's not what it's about. Come on.
Very sad.
Online dating's rough. It's rough.
And Rachel
Hi. Yay, Rachel.
When I tried online dating, I made my username something with a Nerf herder reference, and that was a big mistake.
Oh, what? Too much attention?
Just a lot of like, scruffy. It was
everything. I know.
It was a weird.
I know.
It was a weird kind of
A
attention.
lot of guys like, I bet you probably haven't heard this joke, but here's a Star Wars joke. And you're like,
Okay.
great.
Calm down.
Great.
Never tell me the odds. Well, 3,720 to 1 to survive the asteroid field that no one cares about. So there you go. Now, last month, you voted between Rachel's pick, which was The Golden Compass, which is a great book if you haven't already got it.
We will read it.
I think so. I think that has to happen. Hector's pick, which is getting awfully ignored. I'm so sorry about it.
It's true. Everybody has terrible taste. Really bad taste.
It was the first Han Solo book. I can't remember what it's called. It's got sun in it.
Called The Paradise Snare.
No, it doesn't
Not
have
even
sun
close.
in it.
Nope.
Okay, good.
It's got snare. It's close.
Snare.
Slippy, Swamlammy, Samsonite.
I used to play the snare drum. In a band.
For your own jokes?
Meow. You should give him that sweater.
Meow.
Sass pants.
Yeah, sass pants.
There you go.
Sass
And
pants.
then, of course, my pick to bore everyone, 1984, which you guys realise the relevance here. Obviously, it's the dystopian classic that kind of talks about a totalitarian government. So sorry about that. 59% though. And I believe it is the top seller again on Amazon. So everyone's kind of caught on to this one.
Why is it the top seller on Amazon? Are people looking
Because
for
they
answers for how to? But why? Because people
they
looking for a way to
didn't read
cope.
I think it's a way of understanding it. I think it's like commisery.
Well, I think a lot of the time it's like he's doing particular things that is literally what has been happening in this book.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think it's evidential going, well, this has been predicted and this is literally a template on how to create a totalitarian government.
Is there, now, because I have never read this book before, and you guys read it in high school?
Yeah, high
It's
school.
mandatory.
Mandatory in Australia? God, that's rough.
Blah.
That's rough.
It was,
Is there,
It's part of a lot of school curriculums here too.
For sure, and it may have been mine, and I don't know why I didn't read it, but Molly the techie says, Hector, I voted for it. Oh, thank you so much. Probably for mine, but everybody who voted for 1984, I mean, it was an overwhelming response, which is really exciting that everybody was like, we want to read this book. But does 1984, we only read the first part, does it provide a solution to this? Does it provide, is the story about somebody rising up?
I feel like it's more like a warning.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
And
going to be
that's
a real
why
bummer of a book.
George Orwell actually wrote this. So it's a seminal novel published in 1949 by George Orwell, who's an English author.
English.
And he popularized the term Orwellian, which actually describes surveillance. That's not it. Cool. And the manipulation of truth and history and deception by a totalitarian or authoritarianisms. Can you say that one?
Yeah, it's right.
Authoritarian.
Yeah. What have I done? Put a few more letters in there.
I think so.
Oh, see, we need to
Don't do that. Nope, don't do that.
limit and shorten vocabulary.
I think you pronounced the name of a transformer. I think is what you did. That was that character.
Coming soon.
Authoritarian.
Sword of Destiny. What's the name of it?
Yeah, I don't know. Who cares?
Honestly, this stuff writes itself.
The
If you need a
Space Knight.
name for something, hey, get me to try and say a big word. Anyway, all the language and terms are much more common in today's age, of course, but it uses the themes inspired by wartime Soviet Union and the Nazi Germany and Great Britain in terms of the warning of a dystopian future if we do continue down this path of war and having someone kind of control everything. So let's get stuck into the first part of this book. By the way, guys, if you're in the chat, how did you go with it? How easy was it to get into? I kind of actually want to take it to you guys as well. Reading this, were you able to sit down and kind of smash a lot out? Because I know that I, for the first half, would get through a sentence and then look at my phone. A sentence and then look at my phone. And I'd be reading the same sentence and I wouldn't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'll go first. It was very easy to get distracted while reading this book. This is the first time I felt this feeling since we started Alpha Book Club, which has been just a delight, by the way, ladies. It's been so fantastic. But I feel like I'm in high school, and I feel like this has become required reading, and I feel like maybe it's because of the year that it was written. But we read a book from 1955.
Yeah.
Do you
Haunting of
think
Hill
that
House.
it's
Haunting of Hill
because
House.
you know that it's a book that you're supposed to read? Do you think your brain is doing
I'm
that?
sure there's a lot of psychology involved with it, but I also
Yeah.
believe that that the story does not progress at a quick pace. It's
No.
definitely
Hector,
slow.
Do you know
Yes.
what it is?
What?
It's not escaping into cooler places. It's not fantastical.
True.
It's not all these great,
Well,
amazing things. It's
It's
a
a lot of
warning.
well, it's also a lot of world building in the beginning, and because it was written so many years ago, we've seen its influence in so much
Yes.
dystopian fiction that you
Yes.
feel like you've seen this before and you know what it is, but this is one of the first times that this is addressed
Absolutely.
in sci-fi
Now,
like this.
But even then, though, despite all of that, because a book that I love that I recently read in the past couple years, actually, in 2012, 2013, was The Princess of Mars, Edgar Rice Burroughs, which inspired the movie John Carter,
All right.
starring Taylor Kitsch, which also, that book, first published in 1912, inspired every science fiction thing ever.
Yep.
Superman comic books, Star Wars, Avatar, everything. So when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, okay, I've read this before,
Yeah.
and all of these various other stories that were inspired by it. Same thing with 1984, but despite that, I enjoyed this old pulpy adventure from 1912. But I'm reading this, and I really do believe that the language is it's very methodical, it's very clinical. There's a separation when, even with the world building, because the world building that was also not super fun until we got to the video game part was Ready Player One. Described a similar sort of dystopian world, and I was really engrossed. But reading this, I think that there's a clinical separation for me. And in fact, there's when they brought up the asterisk explaining Newspeak, or
Yes.
whatever the language
Yes.
is, I flipped to the back in the appendix and I read it, and I almost fell asleep.
You read it. Well, you shouldn't have
Because
done
it's
that.
but also a lot of the book just feels like an appendix.
Yes.
An appendix, and when it comes to world building. So
Rach, you?
that's how I felt.
In the chat, some people had been saying that, this is the second read since I was 15. I actually enjoyed reading it this time around. A lot of people had to read it for school. I hesitate to apply intent to writing, but I do feel like as a reader, it's almost effective how removed this is, because there is no empathy in this book, in this society. Everything is how it is, and this is how people live, and this is how terrible it is, but they also are welcoming it because they've been so brainwashed. I did have to take several breaks with this too, but mostly because it was so dense, and so there's so much and so little, like not a lot happens, but there's a lot of detail, and there's a lot of the sort of methodical, the way that the society works, and it's the same I
really
think that's
interesting.
part of it. It's uniform.
Yes.
And it's warning against, given the time that it was written, like the threats of communism
For sure.
and all of that stuff. But it does, I think, warn against not just what's happening now, but you've seen it. You see it. We saw it in Chile with Pinochet. Like, there's all sorts of places where this is exactly what happens, and it becomes so normal that people stop fighting and it stops being exciting. It's just part of that. And so I think that language kind of helped me with that. That this is so evil that it doesn't even it feels normal and boring.
Which I think is really interesting, because the main character, Winston Smith,
Yes.
is somebody who we're in his brain, and while we're there, he's explaining to us how normal all of this is.
Yes.
He's explaining to us that when he has thoughts of, oh my God, I want to go write in a journal, that he feels like he's insane
Yes.
because of how normalized everything else is. So the story does this really interesting thing of getting you putting you literally in the shoes and the perspective of the main character, who is not like you. Who's not like you. He's not creative, he's not expressive, he doesn't live in the same world that you do, but this is his world, this is his thought process. And once we're in those shoes and kind of feel like everything is the way that it's supposed to be, we might be, as the reader, going like, this is horrifying. But spending so much time with him, he talks about how he's sitting in those 2 minutes of hate, and he's also yelling, and how easy it is for him, and it scares him, but it's also normal for him, how easy it is for him to hop back and forth between that and then also,
infectious,
it's infectious.
But
So
it's
we
that-
start feeling that way, and then so slowly as his story unravels and we see little more glimpses of him trying to rebel, then we side with him. But it's always bringing us back to this neutral point of like, always got to stay on guard. It's really, really interesting how that works.
It's like, it's emotional abuse, really. Like, you could take this into a relationship of someone who's trying to control you and makes you feel like you're crazy, and no matter what you say, saying like, but no, this is what I'm saying and this is how I feel, and they will shut you down like that. And it's the same thing where there's moments when he goes to work and he sees the brunette girl that he thinks is terrible, and all of the ways that he views women in this book, and desire and sex, and that's a tool used against you. Your own thoughts are used against you, your perception, your memory. Everything is wrong. You are wrong, and the only right way is this way.
Yes.
And I think that when I read, especially for most of it, I was like, okay, I get it. He's being brainwashed. They're all being brainwashed. But it was the part with the female coworker when he said that, and I was just like, well, I hate you.
Yeah.
because it's this idea of ownership, and he doesn't want her to have any autonomy, and she like
but he also wanted to have sex with her.
Yeah, because he can't have her.
And I was like, oh my god, I'm reading like a 4chan commenter's brain right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like, oh my god,
it's this
I'm reading a
feeling of,
meninist's brain.
I can't have her, so she's
I'll
evil.
take it.
Yeah.
The descriptions in the book, which I think is so great, and it does sound so arduous to read, is because everything is described as so sad, so desolate, so empty. Like he's got a cankle. What is he, like a cankerous sore?
An ulcer.
Varicose. Yeah, And
Ugh.
he's only 39.
He's weak and frail, and you can see and they have everyone kind of trying to exercise because they don't have any food. He's drinking Victory gin. We're drinking Victory wine. But they're malnourished.
Yeah.
So.
But no one's attractive. He said even if everyone had makeup on, still no one would really be attractive. Like everything is just so bleak and dreary. And for me, and I don't know how your mind works when you're creative in your thought process, but I visualize. I'm a very, very visualizing person, and I'm looking at this book, and there is no color. It's basically all black and white, and for me, it's
gray,
like a dark gray, greeny kind of gray, and that's
the food was like gray, like everything is gray.
Colorless.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit hard to.
When he had sex with a prostitute. For some reason, reading that section,
dank.
There was like color. There was like being led into a room that had like neon colors and bright colors, and the bed and everything, and the makeup was bright red lipstick and all these things. I'm like, oh, this is like Pleasantville. This is like he's going to have sex, and there's color. Like, thank God. And then
it's wrong.
The anti-sex movement, they have a bright red sash. I think maybe we're
where
getting
it's
to
all
very Scarlet Letter.
Yes, and it's and I mean womanhood and all of that easy, but the description too, when he sees her and he's so angry that this sash is highlighting her waist because he can't have it, and it just someone in the comments said they felt like it was sort of this rant that you would read online, which is when you look at some of the horrible events, there was a school shooting at my old college at UC Santa Barbara, and when you read all of the
recently, that's right.
a couple years ago.
I remember.
I wasn't there anymore, but and you see the sort of like manifestos of this kind of thinking of control and a world kind of outside of your own view, and trying to control it so desperately in everything around you that it causes this like rage that everyone is like during the 2 minutes of hate. Throughout everything, there's all these thoughts popping up that he just wants to he wants to kill people, he wants to attack people.
But violently kill people. Like some of the ways he wanted to kill people, I was like, whoa.
But that's what's being put into them day in and day out. And even the children you see, which is, similar to the sort of Nazi youth party too, of kids who will turn in their parents, and I mean,
they're all spies.
Yeah.
And that was a frightening part of the book where the fat dad was just like, he's so empty and so oblivious. My children, they're so fun. They actually trailed this man because he had suspicious looking shoes.
Probably killed him.
Yeah, got taken away. Who knows what would happen? They lit a woman's skirt on fire because of something like some weird behavior that she was doing. Oh, she was quite badly burnt. Isn't that funny? My kids are so clever. That is the most frightening thing.
Kids.
The children are animals, and they are being rewarded for that behavior.
Well, they're not
it's a game.
Winston has memories that we get sort of, which I love the flashbacks to his mother and the dreams that he's having and sort of what he remembers from the 40s and 50s before the revolution and before history was literally changed for him and everyone else. But these kids are not growing up with any empathy. They're growing up in a completely different environment where that's all that they know. And that's one of the problems with, you see a lot of this right now with people who are part of different resistance groups and protesting, that this like normalization that this is how things are, this is how they always are, and the truth doesn't actually matter so much as what is being. I mean, we're seeing that right now with alternative facts. On both sides, you'll see posts go viral on, you know,
from the same company,
from different places to get clicks for ad revenue.
Yep.
And that keeps happening, and it started out small, and it keeps happening now. But it's that thing of like, you don't know what's true because you're not taught to think critically and to look at something and research it and figure it out.
Find the sources.
How many of us as well these days will look and only read the heading of a story and not actually read the entire article? I think we have to actually
that's like the first year that I worked here, it took all of my willpower to not comment back on everything and be like, actually, if you clicked through the link and read the whole article, you will receive context and thought besides
and
like
nuance
besides one thing that's the entry point to a longer conversation.
No, but they just want the immediacy. They just want the heart of it all, and they only really want to hear what they want to hear.
There was a really interesting comment in the alpha chat, which, by the way, guys, you guys are having a great discussion in there.
Yeah,
Keep it
really
going.
good.
It's really, really fascinating. But I think it was Main Ogre that commented somewhere along the lines of, correct me if I'm wrong, because it went away. It's okay, I don't have to quote it exactly, it's fine. But I think Main Ogre said something like, to them, political correctness feels like it could go to an Orwellian place with probably what political correctness is today, with the censoring of certain words, with that turning into Newspeak and Doublespeak. And I think it's really, really interesting, that perspective, because it reminded me that what people fear, it is just about perspective. They saw what happens in this world as a potential future of a place where people would continue to be politically correct until we get to this point.
Wow.
And I kind of feel the opposite. I feel like whenever I hear the phrase political correctness, what that means to me is literally treating people with respect.
Right.
What that means to me is like, if there's something like the F word when it's a derogatory term for gays, as something that everybody can agree, just like the N word, like everyone's like, this word has so much hate, so much power, that we need to, as a society, do better and try to remove this from what has become a common, for obvious reasons, all historical context, all of that stuff. That is what I think of when I think of political correctness. That's my perspective, is like people attempting to take away power from those kinds of things, people attempting to be respectful to, even using the word retarded. Has now become, in the past 5, 10 years, 15 years.
2
years.
Super recent.
Super recently, people have been going,
Can't say that word.
It's awful. I have a mentally handicapped family. All of these different contexts and experiences where people go, oh, we weren't aware, you know, we'll change our. I remember this famous example of Alec Baldwin yelling at a paparazzi. And he said, "You see, sucker?" Right. And it's Alec Baldwin. He's like an old school dude. He's like, you know, like I think he's like, what is he like? I think he's like an Irish Catholic family. Like, and somebody pointed out to Alec Baldwin, that's like a homophobic slur. And he said, I had no idea. I will retire it from my vocabulary. But it's this thing of like trying to change your. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that is what I see this concept. But I believe that a lot of people fear those terms, political correctness, because they think it means censorship, because they think and they can point to 1984. Both sides of whatever coin you may fall on can use this and go, well, if you don't listen to me, we're going to get this, which is fascinating. It's all about perspective. I can point to it and go, if we don't change what we're doing now, we're going to lead to this. And the other side, whatever it is I'm talking about, can go, if we don't listen to me, we're going to get to this.
Well, I think
crazy.
I think it's human nature too, because you look at, there's a lot of, you know, he looks back on capitalism in this book, which clearly is not what's happening in here with this fondness, but none of these systems work perfectly, and that's because humans are at the center of them. And you know, there's whatever political thing that you believe, you look at things like socialism, which at their heart is, you know, striving for equality or different things, but a lot of the problems with communism or socialism is that people have to enact them. People can be inherently very selfish and or scared, hateful, all of these things. They can also be compassionate and brilliant and wonderful, but that's why we are deeply flawed as a species, and that's where people turn to religion to understand. Like, it's the human condition is something that we have not figured out in thousands of years and maybe won't, but that's part of it, is that at the heart of it, it's people behind it. And if you are working towards something with the best intentions, treating people with respect, making sure that you believe in and are enacting equality, that's one thing. There are nefarious reasons to do all of these things. You look at, again, in this book, they talk about the proles, the sort of lower class, and how they distract them with gambling and the lottery and all sorts of things, and want them to be dumb and want them to be poor because they're easier to control that way, and they don't realize that. And
we've had politicians actually say that. We've had politicians in our real world say, I don't want people voting, I don't want people that are smart. Something to that effect, which is crazy. The moderator had a comment about how the way that it works in this book is that people are self-policing. The whole party's tactic is people self-policing, and people are being rewarded for being like raised to be tattletales. Basically. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's true. It's horrifying.
And so I think that this has happened before, and not to this to an extremely, pretty much this in everyone always thinks of Germany, but again, like Chile, you had people being pulled out of their homes in the middle of the night. Like that didn't happen that long ago.
Yeah.
And so it's really about, I think, the intention, and from this, it's clear that these are people who are enslaved by this totalitarian presence, and we don't even know who they are yet, or what they're doing, or any of that really.
I actually kind of want to have a little chat about the Newspeak here, why they are limiting.
I'm gonna get some more wine over that because it's stressing me out. Go ahead.
We have an extra bottle on hand, and also I want to say,
Since 1984.
I really appreciate so far. I know this is like a really tough book and really tough and super relevant subject matter. I really appreciate
a lot of
how respectful everyone is being in the chat right now. Thank you guys so much, and it's totally fine to disagree, and the great thing is that we can have a respectful, intelligent dialogue about these things, and we don't all have to be on the same page. We just don't need to attack each other over it.
It's all about perspective. We all of us want the same things. We all are human beings, and we want to be accepted.
No, we don't.
We want love.
We don't want the same things.
Yes, we do.
That's why there is such a divide.
Name one thing that you want.
I want to be able to have no problem with immigration. And then other people don't. I'm fine with a multicultural society and integration. Some people are not.
But I think that comes down to, when you get to the core, we all want the same thing. You want people to be treated with humanity and respect and dignity, and you want there to be people that when they need help to get help. And other people fear for their safety. And all that comes down to is like, well, obviously we fear for our safety. You fear for your safety as well.
Shrink if you think that someone you've known.
It all comes down to perspective and manipulation and
built-in manipulation and propaganda and issues with, and my mom was a public school teacher for 30 years in LAUSD in Los Angeles, which has its pros and cons. But in public schools across the country, I watched, as I was growing up, bilingual programs get cut, gym get cut, arts get cut, and they're cutting down on basically learning how to think for yourself, learning that things are okay, not being afraid. And so, it's in the book. What is it? War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Ignorance is not strength. Knowledge and critical thinking and being able to think for yourself and having an open mind to other people and other perspectives, that is strength.
Knowledge is power.
Let's talk about Newspeak.
So, Winston's having a chat with his mate who's a little bit erratic and way too smart, Sime. I'm guessing it's short for Simon. He's just condensing it.
Oh, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. Okay.
He's, way too smart. And I want to kind of read.
Simi? Keep going.
So I said Sime.
Sime.
Sime, but different.
Sime says.
And he's talking about Newspeak, and he's so excited about it because he's in the department which is all about just cutting words, completely shortening the entire language.
Which just breaks my heart.
Don't you see that the whole aim of Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible because there will be no words in which to express it. Every concept that could ever be needed will be expressed by exactly one word, with its meaning rigidly defined and all of its subsidiary meanings rubbed out and forgotten. Already in the 11th edition, We're not far from that point. But the process will still be continuing long after you and I are dead. Every year, fewer and fewer words, and the range of consciousness always a little smaller. Even now, of course, there's no reason or excuse for committing thought crime. It's merely a question of self-discipline, reality control. But in the end, there won't even be any need for that. And then my favorite thing is, not even a page later, Winston goes, one of these days, with sudden deep conviction, Syme will be vaporized. He's too intelligent, he sees too clearly and speaks too plainly, and the party does not like such people. One day he will disappear. It's written in his face, which brings us into face crime as well. And I'd be
Oh
fucked.
my God.
I like how you made your face more crimey when you read that. That was so funny.
God.
Okay, everybody be real serious. Everybody be real serious with your face. Okay, think of like an old man farting and it's real wet, but don't smile, don't laugh. Serious face.
I'm dead,
You guys are dead.
No,
you guys died.
You can tell on my face if
True.
I'm having, and I hate this about myself.
I'm gonna do an experiment.
When
Okay, be neutral right now, and I'm just gonna say a movie title, and I'm gonna guess how you feel about it.
Okay.
Just from your facial expressions. Okay, ready?
Okay. Wait.
Okay, be neutral, Rachel. Be neutral.
I can't.
Okay. Suicide Squad.
Oh, there was a lip, there was a chin quiver.
Did you see that little
Yeah.
tiny chin quiver?
Chin quiver,
It was
yep.
so like microscopic, but the TV would have picked up on that. Oof.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I'd be done for it.
To Rachel's face for this one, please, if that's cool on camera.
Rachel's face, please.
Beauty and the Beast. I mean,
Okay.
It's. I mean, if I'm having a bad day, everyone's like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I'm like,
yeah.
"Nothing."
I know.
Yep.
I wear
fine.
everything on my sleeve.
Yeah.
But with the whole Newspeak thing, I want to bring it back to a lot of discussion that's happening in the chat right now. They're actually comparing the Newspeak and the limiting of language to not only Twitter, allowing only 140 characters,
Great
which a
comparison.
lot of people are struggling with,
Great comparison.
but emojis. Emoji is taking away the ability to form a word and actually describe what you're feeling. It's just a little tiny face, and that does it all for you.
I feel like it took me years to finally come around to use LOL.
I still
I
won't
feel
do it.
when like Instant Messenger just started, I remember first time I would see like those sort of like little contractions and different things. I'd be like, oh, come on, form a sentence, people, form it. And I was like 12, like I'm a little shit.
Yeah.
So I would type out like I'm laughing out loud, laugh out loud, laugh out loud.
I
until
will
finally
too.
I'm
I
like,
actually
LOL.
laughed. I will
Yeah.
say that.
Ha ha ha.
I
Well,
don't
guilty.
think my dad is ever gonna watch this, so I'm not gonna feel bad about telling the
Throw him under that
story.
bus, Rachel. Throw him under the
But
bus.
it's really funny. So when I was in high school, I was at an all-girls Catholic school. I was getting into trouble, and so my parents were kind of locked it down on me.
What kind of trouble were you getting into? What were you doing? Talking back?
It's
All right.
fine.
That's
That's
fine.
fine. But they put, my dad had like a thing on my computer, speaking of 1984, that like logged everything that you typed, and I didn't know when I was younger. And this is like a very liberal dude. but he
Wow.
was-
Very
Big
paranoid.
father
yeah, it was.
is
but
watching you.
he thought, he was like really worried that LOL stood for like some sort of like drug lingo, or, like a party thing. And he told me that years later, because I didn't know he was doing it until he had told me in my 20s, and I was like, fuck you.
Better than my
it was
mum.
so funny.
She uses LOL, lots of love.
Lots of love.
So I'd be like,
Yeah.
had the worst day, think I'm getting let go, like
LOL.
I'm broke, everything's gonna be fine. Lol.
LOL.
Like,
Lol.
you heartless wench. Like, what is your
Like,
problem?
Maude, I hate to have to tell you this, I'm texting you, but your auntie died, LOL.
Yes, that's exactly
Like,
it.
what?
Yeah. I'm like,
Don't laugh at that.
I didn't know you didn't
A
like it.
relative just died.
What was that accent though? We're gonna just skip over
It's
that.
Australian. It's a little bit of an Australian. Maude.
It wasn't.
Maudie.
You're actually doing like a bit of an you're saying.
Maude, it's your mum. I'm texting you to let you know that you're...
To let you know, lassie.
to let you know. No, you throw me off. You throw me off. Hang on. Hang on. I'll get it. Knife murder. Maude, I'm texting you to let you know that your family cat passed away. Little Whiskers. Passed away. Little Whiskers passed. LOL.
Please
I
stop.
like that your reference point to get into
Yep.
like
Murder.
Australian is
Knife.
Yep.
murder.
Knife murder. I got
Well,
it.
I mean, how do I not get upset with that as well?
What is your reference point to do
actually,
it?
for someone who just preached a good 5 minutes on PC,
Yeah.
you want to get your mojo
Yeah.
to get in Australian is knife and murder.
Yeah. Knife murder. Because of those rolling noises.
Oh, backpedal like a mofo.
No, I'm serious. Because
It's
look at
also
the
from film, right?
Thank you, but also the way I say knife and murder. Look at that American accent.
Knife and murder.
Right? Now, what's the Australian?
Hold on, let me get an American. Basic bitch.
See?
What
See?
else?
I don't blame you. That's fine. That's
Yeah, I
fine.
know.
Just don't try to do a Mexican accent or we'll have a problem. Okay, no, just kidding. Just kidding. You can do it. I can teach you how to do it later. It's fine.
Lost the number says, Hector, please never stop. So
No, I can't. Maude's really mad at me for real. Let's keep talking.
I'm not.
What,
I actually
what
wait.
about the book?
This is an Australian mentality. Oh, this is something that I could be upset about. Am I though? Is it a big thing? Is this going to change my life?
Yeah.
Nah. I'm fine.
Nah.
Get over it.
Love it.
So Big Brother, the plastering and propaganda all over. I think it was
eyes.
yes, this boring into your soul, watching you at all times. Moderator made a really good comment much earlier, going, "Is this literally what North Korea does?" I mean, you've got all the propaganda splayed all over
no
the
idea.
city.
Maybe.
Are they saying, "Hey, we're in war and we're doing great"? You know, are they actually spinning this level of like severe manipulation in the media because they're controlling everything? I mean, this is an actual thing that's happening. But Big Brother doesn't have a name. We don't know who we're worshipping. He's just Big Brother. What do you guys think about this, and who are you picturing him as?
Joseph Stalin.
Ooh.
Oh,
I pictured a poster of Joseph Stalin because of a powerful black mustache, is how it was, how Big Brother's
Yeah.
described.
Yeah,
With
I
like
think that's the
piercing
iconography
eyes.
as
yeah.
well.
Is that sort of like
Yeah.
Joseph Stalin poster with the hat, military hat, mustache?
This is an aside, but sort of similar. And I don't know, I didn't look it up before this, if this is, it's sort of like in, if you look at like Clueless, or, you know, is a loose adaptation of Emma, or things like that. But have you guys seen the movie Equilibrium?
nah, mate.
With Christian Bale.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gun kata, gun fu. Yeah.
Right? This sort of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I
It's
could see that.
It's the cutting off of emotion, and no, they're burning books, they're burning poetry. It's more on the creative side and less. But he finds a puppy that makes him feel. You know, it's a whole
keeps it in
thing.
his
But
trunk.
yeah, oh my god. But it
So,
reminded me of that.
If we
Totally.
were to completely wipe out emotion and feeling
Impossible.
and become robotic, I'd
Impossible.
be taken in the middle of the night for sure, yeah?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
Day one.
We're having a book club
Yes.
to talk about themes and
feelings.
allegories
And feelings.
and our feelings.
I asked
and
myself
how
that question though, was like,
Yeah.
could I fake it until I made it? Could I fake it enough?
I like to think I'd
don't know.
I'd go under, like I'd find the resistance and go underground.
Well, this is what Winston's doing. He's caught one
trying to.
glimpse of a glance at O'Brien, and he's reading heavily into it. And he's
love
got this
that.
mannerism where he kind of fixes his glasses and pushes them up.
Love
and
it.
Is it a signal? Is, you know, how are they able to communicate when they're being listened, when they're being watched, when their words are monitored? Like there is actual, like there's. It's a pretty flawless plan to stop any kind of revolt. And I think, you know, I was thinking, what would I do? Could you even pass notes? You couldn't really do anything. You couldn't create your own language or a sign. How do you even communicate that this is how we now communicate?
and
you know?
they don't even have to be watching. It's so instilled.
the
The fear
mentality
is
that they
instilled
are
in them so
watching.
much that he's looking at is it the telecast?
Yep.
And these kind of mirror screens that they could be watching at any time, or they couldn't. He luckily has a space, but you don't. There could be something set up in that apartment that is focused on that
he
area,
doesn't
and he
know,
doesn't
sure.
know that at all. But it's the presence of that. Those could be turned off. They've been so successful that the work is done.
That's it. Well, if you constantly pump fear into
Yeah.
people,
Yep.
it's so easy to control.
Every day, 2 minutes of hating a person that you don't even know, and it's cut between, you know, they cut all this different imagery together to elicit a response, and people are enraged. And when we hear his thought process, he's thinking, well, I sort of feel this way, and I don't, and I do, and it's, you know.
Pack
it's the-
mentality, though. Like if everyone's
But
cheering,
what if
you get
everyone else
into it.
feels that way? It's the same, you know, you go to museums in Germany. I was there last year, and I went to the Typography of Terror Museum, which is all about the newspapers and photographs and letters and clippings of everything that went on before Hitler's rise to power and after, all through. And it was like a 4-hour just sob fest. I mean, it's, you
Wow.
walk through, very powerful and absolutely like essential, even though it's hard to go witness that. This was right before the election. But you see that people were humiliated in the streets and were dragged out, and that is an effective tactic, so that even if you felt that way, you've got a family to protect, you've got something else that people could not agree with that, and they'd be so afraid. You have both sides. You don't know how anyone feels because they're too afraid to tell anyone, because anyone could rat them out.
I think the protective of the family is a really, really, really big one. And I think that's why we had this whole country dispute where it was like, well, I want to protect my family. And that is the fundamental, like, most important thing in my life. And above all, they need to be protected before anyone else.
Yeah.
I think that's how that's, back to your
It's
point,
good.
which
It's
I
good
couldn't
brainwashing.
disagree
It
with,
is.
and now I
It
can.
is. Yeah. Because it's not.
It's an excuse.
You know, when people talk about even something as like as controversial as gun violence and gun ownership and gun accessibility, people will always go to, well, I want to protect my family. But if you look at like statistics, it's like the odds of somebody
your kids are going to
intruding
shoot each other.
Exactly.
It's more
So
likely.
it's all about that sort of, you know, that mind control. And I have a passage that I want to read real quick before I get too drunk
What
and before the
accent?
show's over. Give me an accent. Australian? You want full on Australian? North murder, dingo. Dingo.
Oh man,
North.
she's gonna kill you.
No, she's so mad. You want to do a Mexican accent?
Yes.
Like a cholo? No, I don't feel like doing that either. I'll do it. I'll do it to
about
make
a
you feel
Valley
better.
Girl?
A Valley Girl? Nah, that's too easy.
It's such a juxtaposition between what he's reading.
It is I need a good I need a good
1984.
Yeah, 19. It's like real serious. I need a whatever. I'll just read it regular. I'll just read it regular because this is a serious topic.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Stand easy, barked the instructress a little more genially. Winston sank his arms to his sides and slowly refilled his lungs with air. His mind slid away into the labyrinthian world of doublethink. To know and not to know, to be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies, to hold simultaneously two options which canceled out, knowing them to be contradictory and believing in both of them, to use logic against logic, to repudiate morality while laying claim to it, to believe that democracy was impossible and that the party was the guardian of democracy, to forget whatever it was necessary to forget, then draw it back into memory again at the moment when it was needed, and then promptly to forget it again, and above all, to apply the same process to the process itself. That was the ultimate subtlety. Consciously to induce unconsciousness, and then, once again, to become unconscious of the act of hypnosis you had just performed. Even to understand the word doublethink involved the use of doublethink.
Wow.
I read that and I was like, the thing, when we picked in 1984, I was like, well, I'm going to be horrified. Like, I'm going to be mad, I'm going to be terrified, I'm going to be angry. And I read that and I was like, yep, that sums up a lot of what I feel politics is doing right now.
Yeah.
Is literally being aware of lying and then backtracking on it and then using it and then, well, that's your words. Those are your words. Melissa McCarthy, Sean Spicer, well, those are your words. You're using it me. It's the circular uses of words and now it's your words. And so he did it. He said it. It's your own words. It was insane.
Yeah.
But I think that going back to the very first thing that we said about this book and the language and how dense it is and how clinical it is that words are important and language is important, and to be able to understand the complexities of that, you do need this analysis. It's not an emotion. It's way more complex than that. It's emotion and it's thought and it's propaganda and it's history and it's all condensed into one thing. And you were talking about like emojis and abbreviations and all that. And I don't think this is intentional, but in many other languages, there are terms for emotions and moments and feelings that we don't even have words for. Like in Italian, sprezzatura is the feeling of like immense luck coupled with talent, but you wouldn't have gotten there if you hadn't had luck.
I feel that all the time.
We don't,
Wow,
and
that's
and
amazing.
there's a really great book.
What was it again? Do that again.
Sprezzatura.
I love it.
It's a really great book called Sprezzatura, which is about a bunch of really great creators and inventors in Italian history
Sounds like
that
a
I
champagne
highly
menu.
recommend. Yeah.
Sprezzatura.
But it's, there's all sorts, and Schadenfreude, there's
Yes.
all sorts of, that
Yep.
we don't, our languages, as much as I love language, has its limitations, and you do need many of them to convey a lot of complex ideas like this.
But it's good and plus good.
Plus
Double
good.
plus good.
Yeah.
Double
Or
plus good.
ungood. Oh, double ungood.
That's so simple.
Super
We're
plus
not
good.
simple
Professor
people.
Ungood.
Life is not simple.
Yeah.
Life is deeply complex.
We're actually getting some great quotes. Your favorite quotes that you're writing into the chat now. Lost the Numbers did exactly that. Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date.
Terrifying. Terrifying. It's happening now. It's happening every day.
There's a few more in there if you're on the chat. You can have a peruse through. But what we're going to talk about now, what do you think's going to happen next?
I don't know. It's going to
What
get
are our
sadder.
predictions?
I don't know.
I want to know the fate of I can't actually recall
We're gonna
it.
need a happy book. I
need
just
a
felt
happy book?
so bad. We're gonna need a hopeful, a hopeful book next time.
No, this is good. What this book is going to do is it's going to arm me with some great references to go to when I'm frustrated with what's happening in the real world. Is I'm going to be like,
What's wrong with you,
what
Maude?
happened?
I'm 12, but I put the bottle down in the worst spot. I'm on camera. I'm in the bottle.
What about the camera?
There's a word that I don't know what this is what I'm feeling right now.
Schadenfreude?
Double plus embarrassed.
Because what? Because you put
Never
the-
mind.
Okay.
So fine. So the brunette woman, obviously her motives are very, very unclear.
Yeah,
What
they're
do
gonna
you
hook
think?
up. They're gonna hook up.
Oh yeah.
Big time.
What about
Angry
do you
sex.
think Winston's gonna get involved in the
Resistance?
at
Yeah,
all?
he better. Otherwise, this book is a piece of shit, and there's no point to it.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
If he just rats out everybody in his community, and it's like, and that's the end of the book, I'll be like, fuck
And
this.
you hear the
Yeah.
firing squad.
Yeah.
Hey Alexa in the chat said, so is Twitter evil? And what I would say is that, like we said with what happens with governments or the way that we interact with each other, I think it's all about intent because people can find work
Yes.
and connection through Twitter, but it can also be wielded as a weapon.
I'm gonna
That
say
would
it's
be-
neutral evil. I'm gonna say Twitter is
Not
neutral
chaotic evil?
Not chaotic evil. It's neutral evil.
All right.
But so because when people point out like, hey Twitter, fix this. This shit's evil. They're like, nah. we don't want to take sides. We're neutral evil. It's like Twitter. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
Nazi accounts.
We're
Yeah.
gonna add a special section to the top that has nothing to do with anything
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
So neutral evil. Well done, Twitter. Good job, Twitter. Good job.
Interesting. I also want to talk about how 1984 has like particular parts of pop culture that have completely borrowed from this. I was really clearly visualizing, this is what I do, reading this book, Division 12 from the Hunger Games.
There you go.
The whole of the Hunger Games is about this control.
Equilibrium is another one.
There you go.
What's another one? Let's list them all off.
Divergent.
Divergent.
Fantastic.
And all of the
Yes,
Divergent
faction,
series.
Yes.
So a lot of, probably Maze Runner.
So have
Probably.
you noticed that they're all skewed to like a
Teens?
tween-age market? Are they
Well,
trying to
that's
educate?
an interesting, trying to educate? That's a very insightful comment, Maude. Well done. Cheers.
Don't act so
Well done.
surprised.
Well, I'm not.
So
I'm
terrified.
no. I'm saying that's a very insightful comment, as we would expect from regularly insightful Maude. Good. Cheers. Well done.
You
Cheers.
seriously
Well done.
deserve an award in backpedaling. Are they
Thank
like
you.
sore from it? Like,
I'm good.
so-
No, man, it's like riding a unicycle. You know what I'm saying? I got it. I got it.
That's amazing. Any more? Can we have a little quick flick through
Crap.
the chat just for one more quote? Because I did read another one. It was so amazing, and I do want to.
Moderator's gonna give Hector. I don't know which part, but you're
Oh
about to
no!
be gift.
I don't know.
No, as soon as I was like, I shouldn't mention this because you'll get a gift. But I'm sorry about that. No, we read that one. Let's keep going.
Canadian
Other-
accent, eh?
Can you do a Canadian accent?
Mm-hmm.
Wowee!
Yeah.
You're quite the improv
Oh, I'm
artist.
so sorry about that. I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry about that.
I love
Really
when I'm
sorry.
watching a sci-fi show and then I realize that it's being filmed in
Oh, Vancouver.
Vancouver
Yeah.
because you hear that's seamless, and then all of a sudden it's like, sorry.
What?
Were you guys looking for a specific quote or?
Yeah, it was a little while back though. Someone actually did a quote from it, which was fantastic. I should have called it out when it happened. Patch has been making some really, really
Yes.
great
I have Patch on next
comments.
week actually.
Hey,
What?
Patch, come back
Patch?
on the show.
Yeah.
Had a really great
be
chat
great.
about it.
That'd be great.
Anyone want to read that one?
Is that it?
Yep, that's it right there.
Very good.
And when memory failed and written records were falsified, when that happened,
Patch went away.
When that
Honestly, our chat works
happened.
really well, guys.
shit got crazy when that happened.
that-
It was nuts, y'all. And when that happened, the claim of the party to have improved the conditions of human life had got to be accepted because there did not exist and never again could exist any standard against which it could be tested.
Page 93 for those reading along at home.
Nice.
Fantastic. So now it's up to you. If you want to keep joining us this month, and you're not completely depressed, finish up to chapter 7 of part 2. So stop at chapter 8.
Okay.
That's the next little chunk. It's not going to be as big as this one, but hopefully a lot more themes that we can discuss. And make sure you tweet us a bunch of things that you want to talk about as well. If there's anything specific that you would like us to divulge in, share an opinion on, head over there. Also, just created a Goodreads community for Alpha Book Club.
Nice.
Yes. Obviously, Goodreads is where you can jump online, talk about the books that you're currently reading, and the books that we'll be covering. You can have a dialogue and discussion there as well. If you want to do a review on the book, that's the place to do that. The link is currently in the chat, so get involved there. And of course, we always love your recommendations on what to read next. You can tweet in at @Nerdist, @Geek and Sundry, or @JoinTeamAlpha, or use the Alpha Book Club hashtag as well. Woo, it's going to be good. Can it be happy, though? That is our only request.
It's got to be like Harry Potter,
fun and bubbly.
Golden Compass, Han Solo. No, not Golden Compass?
I mean, it's a great book.
Yeah,
a
comics is
comic.
next, actually.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Last
lot
week
of
of
recommend-
March.
Yeah, a lot of recommendations coming in for some comics too. Well, that's it for us. Stick around for the premiere episode of Crafting Comics with Jim Higgins.
Speaking of.
And Tiffany Smith. Yeah,
I can't
loving the comics happening right now. It starts at 8 o'clock PST right here on Alpha. We'll see you guys next week, we hope. Bye. Big Brother is watching you.
I'll show it next time, but.